Welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast, where we create space for conversations that heal. I'm your host, Dr. Byron McClure, a nationally certified school psychologist. I, along with our special guests, will give you insight to promote collective healing by putting people first. Through weekly conversations with educators, psychologists, and healers, we'll discuss ways to heal, thrive, and live your best life. This is the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast, where we create space for conversations that heal. Today, we have a very special guest on the platform. I'm super hyped to talk with Sunne. Let me introduce real quickly who we're talking to today. Sunne Perry Bailey, also known as the Whole Healing Homie, is a wife, a mother, Jesus lover, and mental health provider from the inner city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Sunne, welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast.
Thank you. Look, the Whole Healing Homie is in the building. I appreciate the invitation, and yes, let's get into these healing conversations.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so before we get into it, I have to say I saw you on social media. You were having a conversation like we talked about during pre-show with Makisha Mack. Shout out to Makisha Mack. And I honestly just fell in love with the conversation that you all were having, the energy that you all put out, and really just talking about all things healing. So I'm happy that we're able to share this space together. And for those who might not be familiar, I would love if you could just break it down. Who is Sunne, aka the Whole Healing Homie?
Well, like you said before, like I'm a wife, I'm a Jesus lover. Basically, I always kind of like to introduce myself as like if I had to use 3 words that would describe me to kind of give you an idea of like what you get when you deal with me. I like to describe myself as hood, holy, and healing. That is those 3 things. That is my authentic me. But when I'm in general, I'm a mental health provider. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a clinical substance abuse counselor as well. I'm just really one of those people who anything related to healing, I'm ready to jump in to have those discussions, to make it a part of how we thrive and survive in this world. And so, yeah, I'm just like I said, when you hear homie, I'm real chill, I'm real laid back, but I'm ready and always willing to have those conversations and give people those tools to heal.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I saw, of course, we have to do our social media stalking, aka our research. And in my social media stalking, aka research, I saw that you're a licensed clinical social worker. I didn't realize that. So talk a little bit about that background and how that kind of shaped some of the things that you're doing now.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am newly licensed as of like February of 2021. I got my MSW in 2014. And so honestly, I believe had I not went the MSW route, there probably wouldn't be a Heal Grow Heal. And my background initially was education. So my bachelor's is in education. And when I started the MSW program, when I went to school, it was really just about me going out of like obedience to what I felt like God was like calling me to do. And I didn't understand that when I got in the program, it takes so much self examination. Like, whew, that was probably the most intensive thing that I had to do was really getting in the process and believing the process of like, I got to figure out who I am in order to help others find who they are. And so becoming a clinical social worker, honestly, I never knew I was going to be doing this. I thought for sure I was going to be in ministry, just helping individuals who always kind of get like pastoral care. I was like, okay, I know a lot of times growing up as a church girl, we would always go to our ministry leaders. But a lot of them, they had the word, but they didn't have the practical works that come with it. And so I said, if God, if you're calling me into ministry, I want to make sure that I have like the skill and the knowledge behind what it is I'm doing. And so that's really the gist of how I ended up in the clinical social work route. I thought for sure I was just going just to be an educated pastor or a ministry leader, to be honest.
Well, that's really fascinating to me. And so your initial goal was to get the degree and then go into spiritual background or to spiritual type
Yeah.
counseling. Really?
Yes, because so like initially, so like, and I'm sorry, I gotta go there. I gotta be as transparent as possible. But initially, I had received like this word that God was going to be using me to heal families, marriages, and I'm like, okay, like I didn't understand that. No, but I'm like, okay. So I said, God, if you want me to do this, because at that time I had experienced, I was actually a dual leadership program, and I had experienced some racism at the time from one of my professors. And at that time, I was a single mom. I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. And so I was in school trying to better myself. And when that happened, I said, I'm done with school. That's it. I'm not doing it. And it was about like a couple months after I had dropped off the program that like this message came to me. And I'm like, okay, if you want me to do it, you have to make a way because I had never considered myself going into counseling or anything. And I was running from it from a little bit. And suddenly, like the door started open, things started falling into place. And I was like, I'll just take some classes and see where it leads. And my first classes were marriage and family therapy and introduction to counseling. And from there, it just went on. So
That's amazing. So you get your degree and then what do you do after you finish your degree?
So after I finished my degree, by that time I was already on track to be like clinical social worker and substance abuse. At that time here in my state of Wisconsin, like they were recognized as two totally different, like although they go hand in hand. And what I was finding when I was in school, that a lot of times the individuals who had issues with substance abuse or an addiction, they were using those substances to numb the trauma that they had been through. You know, they were using those things. So to me, it just made sense to make sure that I was doing mental health. If I was going to be a mental health social worker, that I had that background with substance addiction as well. And so after I got done with my degree, I went into community case management. Whew, and that was dealing with like chronically dual diagnosed men and women who were formerly incarcerated. And so very high risk caseload of like 40 something right here in the inner city. It was intense work. I mean, very intense. And from there, I just started to matriculate. I was in corrections as a social worker, doing a substance use program there as a social worker. I was also working at a hospital in the ED screening for just, acute and like acute care and crisis management then. So, and now I'm at the VA working with veterans doing case management there in our addictions clinic. So,
That's really, really neat. And so I want to talk about what you're doing currently and the platform
okay.
that you built out. You are the CEO of Hill Girl Hill. Break down what Hill Girl Hill is and where did that inspiration even come from?
Okay. So Heal Grow Heal, I like to say or describe it as it's a faith-based safe place, right? And by that, it's basically it started from me literally feeling like God was leading me to have this event where we get together to have a conversation as a woman, just getting together to have conversations and to share this pool to encourage women to really get assertive about their healing journey. It was the goal is to humanize healing in a way that can be received. And, within the Black community, mental health has been like this big taboo and stigma. And like one thing I definitely noticed was in the Black community, we rely heavily on our faith. And I realized like it wasn't just enough. Faith wasn't enough. We had to start giving language to some of these things that we had been through. And so the goal was to encourage people to start heal from the hidden hell that we all have in our life. And so it started off as just an event. And from there, the response was like so like, oh, can we do it more often? Women were they were just so connected. It initially was like a retail therapy where I had therapists there and they're encouraging them to shop for therapists, not just to shop for merchandise, but to go around and shop and connect with local therapists. We had a panel, we had, just a lot of activity that encourage the idea of humanizing healing so that it didn't have to be so taboo. And I realized that came out of my own troubles and things that I've had to heal from. One of the reasons I call myself as a whole healing homie is because one, there's been a whole lot of crap, a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of hidden hell that I had tucked away that was impacting how I showed up in the decisions I made. And so I call myself that whole healing homie, like I said before, because of the all the things I've been through, but because I realized that if I didn't get whole, there was gonna still I would still keep reproducing and recycling some of that hurt. That residue would show up in my family, and I didn't want that. I didn't want that. So
Can you recall a moment where you made a decision to prioritize your healing?
yes. And oh, you go in there. I did, and Imma tell you one of the moments, because 'cause there's been quite a few moments, but one of the moments was when I had to make a decision that I could no longer be angry, upset, or bitter, and I had to extend up the olive branch and, like, open the invitation for my son's soon-to-be stepmom and I to have a conversation, and I felt like being willing to say, hey, I think it's time that we sit down and we have a conversation to really discuss our problems and move beyond that. I felt like that was me making my healing a priority. And that was the major thing that happened before I started to really get serious about Heal Grow Heal.
And in that moment when you made that decision, that's a tough decision that you had to make. What did you feel after you made that decision, after you had that conversation?
I felt so free. I felt so free. Like the thing about it was is like I could feel, when you're feeling led to do something and yet I'm me, look, your girl is hood holy and healing. So I can get real, hey, listen, like I was being stubborn and pride was in the way. And although I felt like I wasn't at fault for the initial way things unplayed, I could see my role in some of the way things transpired. I may not have been initiated, but I could see how things transpired. And I'm always a firm believer. Like when God tells you or brings something to your attention, it's for either for you to hold on to something or to let go of something that can move you into doing something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's bringing it to your attention to bring about some kind of change either in you or through you. And so when I did that, I just remember saying like, if you make a way, and it was just that day, no, it was the funniest thing ever that this person happens to be the one that I was going to have to interact with in order to, to get my child. And I was like, oh God, you're real funny. Like I said this like a couple minutes ago, and now all of a sudden, here's the opportunity. So when it presented itself, it was a thing of having to swallow the pride because I knew what was on the other side of that. I knew release and peace, and peace not just for me, but peace for my child.
Hmm.
It's that's important. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I'm interested to hear with everything that you just mentioned, with the platform that you've built out, and we'll talk a little bit more about the platform, but just in your personal journey, like what does healing mean to you?
Healing means having enough courage, one I would say, because healing, I believe, takes courage. It takes bravery. Having courage to get vulnerable enough with yourself and vulnerable enough with others, and having the like commitment and motivation to say, I may not be able to control everything that happens to me, but I can control what I can that happens through me, and I can control how I respond and how I allow those things to shape who I am. Healing is an ugly process that produces very beautiful results. And so I really believe that's what to me healing is. It is that dealing with everything, whether it's mind, body, spirit, financial healing, healing at the individual level, healing at the social level. Healing I think is vital. It's vital to life. So
Yeah, and I would agree that healing is vital to life. And I also think helping people is essential too, right? Like we all can't do it on our own. I personally prescribe to this collective approach, especially in the community where I'm from and the communities that I claim that, I can't fully actualize my success if my brothers aren't there with me or my friends or my family aren't experiencing that success with me. So I have this collective approach, which is why I'm a psychologist, right? I believe in
mm,
helping people and helping others.
yeah.
And maximizing the potential of those around me. So I'm interested to hear, why is helping people to heal important to you and helping them along their journey? Why is it important to you?
Well, one, I know it's important to me because when I look at the things that I've been through in my life that really impacted me, right? A lot of those things have been, it wasn't all self-inflicted. It was because of things or behaviors I experienced with other people, right? And so my mindset is, it's not just enough to heal the hurt, the ones that are hurting, you have to heal the hurters as well. And so, one of the things, if we're going to talk about breaking this cycle of generational trauma, because I believe if you can pass down wealth, you can pass down trauma, And so, but I also believe you can pass down healing if you're willing to do the work. And so, for me, it's important because I started thinking like, man, I didn't have to experience those things, but I experienced those things as a byproduct of somebody else, what they experienced. And if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And so I just feel like one of the reasons why it's so important is because I don't want people to be having to be the one who had to deal with so much. I didn't want that residue to show up in my home. I didn't want my daughter or my son to be the reason why they're in therapy. I didn't want to be that. And I realized that if I heal me and you heal you, then that heals us and we heal them. That's my mindset. So if I work on healing me and you work on healing you, then together we heal us and that heals them. Them is those around us and those that are coming after us. You know what I'm saying? And so I just really believe that. And then the helping people along the journey, sometimes people just need to know that they're not alone. And like, oh, wait a minute. Like, you weren't the only one that went through that. Oh, you noticed that too, or you felt that too. I believe it's empowering to know when not only did you know I went through that, but you see how I'm coming out of it. Because people need to see representation that it can happen. They need to see beacons of hope. They need to not just know about it or read about it. They need to see about it, and they need to be able to relate and know that doesn't matter what hell you've been through, you can come out of that and be whole. You can.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking that as you're talking, in the clinical world, you're talking about self disclosing information, right? In the spiritual world, talking about a testimony, right? And
Yeah.
sharing your testimony and
Yeah.
how that can help the next person, which is very powerful stuff. I read somewhere where you once said, healing isn't a Christian or guy and girl thing, it's a human need. Break this down for us.
I'm very faith based. That is not a secret. But I think sometimes, from what I've witnessed, is when people feel like they can put you in a certain category as far as religion, they right away they're like, oh, I don't, they sometimes have disassociated themselves with it. And healing is not just about being Christian. It's not just about having a religious walk or anything like that. It's literally about, for me, it's about understanding, hey, I've felt hurt or I've experienced something or I may have inflicted hurt on someone. And so, like, regardless of what religious background or spirituality you subscribe to, regardless if you're a male or a female, and for a while it always felt like there's so many resources for women, there's so many reasons, we're more willing to say, hey, it's time for me to, I'm waiting to exhale. We're more open, we're more, I feel like right away we're more likely to be express our emotions openly. And so it's not just a girl thing, it's not a guy thing, it's not a Christian, it is a human need. If you have experienced anything, doesn't matter how major it is or how minor it might have been, the fact of the matter is, if you don't know how to respond to what happened to you or what you're feeling, you can either become the hurter or you can just live hurting. And so I think that's important to make sure we address those things.
Yeah, and that's a fact. And I'm thinking about how I have a son. Actually, I have two, right? I have a
Okay,
newborn. I have a
okay,
newborn. I got to throw him in there.
okay,
So I have
okay,
three total.
congrats.
Thank you. I have three total. My son, who's 8, my daughter, she just turned 6, and my newborn son. And I'm thinking about the messages that are overt and covert that I'm sending to both of my boys. I'm thinking about messages that myself and my brothers that we received growing up. And I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest of four boys. And I was just thinking about what we were taught as men to handle our emotions and how we were taught. And I'm really thinking about what my teaching and my learning and how I was raised and those messages that I'm passing down to my boys. And what messages am I passing to my daughter as well? And when my son cries, am I telling him, like boys aren't supposed to cry, or if you're acting a certain way, to hide your emotions? And if I'm doing that, why am I doing that? And am I doing it because that's how I might have been taught, or what my brothers taught me, or my father taught me? And so I think those things are super, super important. And especially in a lot of the work that I'm doing now, making sure that we're having these conversations. So I think you are spot on with that, because we have to make sure that our boys, our girls, all understand that we deal with emotions and we have to have the tools and
Yes.
strategies to deal with it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so interesting when you were saying that because I'm like, right away when we started talking about family, I am the baby of 15. Hear me? I'm the baby of 15. Now, I wasn't raised in the house with all of them, but I'm the baby of 15. And I have three children as well. And one of the things that I noticed is growing up for me, because I have a lot of my parents are old school. My father, rest his soul, but my mom, they were old school. I was the baby that was like, "Now what y'all know y'all ain't had no business making another baby at this age." My parents, they're a little seasoned. And so what I realized is at one point, because it was this idea that children are to be the seen and not heard. And one of the things I realized is I did not express how I was feeling a lot because being afraid it would be taken as a sign of disrespect. And so not being able to vocalize when I'm hurting or when I'm scared or when I don't feel safe around this particular person or this person makes me feel this way. Like I know had I been more like free to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I would have felt more compelled to do that and know it was okay to express, "Oh, I don't really like that. And that hurts when you do that." I don't I'm almost certain decisions that I made, I would not you know? And so I think it's important when you were saying like, hey, what message am I sending? And I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy, when I'm from 53206 area code. Look, listen, Google that when you get a chance, psychologist. When you get a chance, Google 53206. It's a whole documentary. Listen, and so like, yeah, you're not really taught even in school. You're not really taught to say, let's talk about emotions. We talk about puberty, but we talk about what physically was happening to our anatomy and stuff, but we weren't really talking about what was happening in our minds. And you know what I'm saying? So I think it's absolutely guy or girl, Christian or not, we gotta talk about healing. We have to talk about these emotions. We gotta be able to have those healing conversations and those healthy dialogues.
Absolutely. It's a must. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, one of the things that I saw on your platform that I'm really intrigued to learn more about is this concept of Blackhausted. How do you say it?
Okay.
Blackhausted?
Black
Black
exhausted, black
exhausted. So it
exhausted,
is the
yeah.
black exhausted.
Yeah.
In my head, like I can say that black exhausted. What is black exhausted?
Okay, so let me first, I gotta put this disclaimer out there because shout out to Jay Barnett. If you all don't know who he is like the he is first of all, just just go to IG King Jay Barnett. When I'm saying he's the mental health, he brings the ministry, the spiritual, the faith mixed with the male, with the mental health. He is like great resource to any black male. He's going to have this Just Heal Grow tour. That's one of my partners. That's the number one healing homie for my brand. But that was really his term that he put out. And it resonated because it's basically saying literally, I am exhausted from being black in America. It's literally, I am mentally, emotionally, physically, just drained of having to be black in America. And it was like this thing of like, I'm tired of my skin being weaponized. I'm tired of having to explain to my my white coworkers, or whatever it is, what we go through. I'm tired of seeing another incident where this person is gunned down because of police. Like, the whole thing is just draining. It's draining. And that's where what that came from. It was just draining. And it's hard, especially when you work in mental health, to be drained on top of that, it's yeah. So that's his term. But we had collab, so
Yeah, and I'm sure it sounds like this collaboration is only beginning. Did I hear that there's going to be some sort of conference or tour coming up with that?
So yeah, so his tour, he has a book, Pub and J. He has a book out called Just Heal Bro. And it is a journal that is for men, really just encouraging them to get in their healing journey. It's a great resource. After the George Floyd situation happened, like, men really, really, really started to become the more open about getting help. And so he has a tour starting. It'll be starting in 2022. But in the meantime, he has a journal out there. I encourage all Black men and even mothers who are, if you have sons, you have adolescents, or you have some men in your life who could benefit. The book is on Amazon. It's called Just Heal Bro. And then he has one coming out, Just Heal Sis. That'll be coming out in 2022 as well.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to shift gears a little bit. In a blog you did, you said something that really resonated with me. You said sometimes you have to stop focusing on being so strong and start focusing on being sane. Your sanity is your strength. Break this down for us.
I believe that came from a place where I've always been the mature one. I've always been like the old soul. And when you have those helping and healing qualities and characteristics, people are just, they draw to you. They just, I know you probably know, as a psychologist, people are drawn to you. And I remember, like, I used to always hear, like, oh, you're so strong, you're so strong. But what would start to come with that is being so strong, but then no one checks on you as the strong one because you're always being the strong one. And it went from being a badge of honor to almost feeling like a burden. And you get this perception of, I gotta appear strong because this is the title, this is what people know me as. I gotta hold on, be strong. We always tell people, be strong, be strong, be strong. When all actuality, like, your strength is only as strong as your sanity. And for me, I realized, like, if I'm not mentally well, if I'm not emotionally well, if I'm not physically well, there is no strength. Who am I? What is the strength? The strength is not there if those components aren't there. And so instead of being so strong, let's focus on being sane. Let's focus on how we focus on our mental health, how we focus on our emotional intelligence, our emotional wealth. And I feel like when we can remove the idea, like, I gotta be strong, knowing that, like, it's okay, like, breaking down and realizing when you need help or when you need to ask for help, that is strength. That is the strong part. It's not about appearing strong and feeling weak. That's not strength. That's not strength. So that's what that was about.
Yeah, and I feel that on a deep level, especially being a psychologist, a practitioner. Like, you're so spot on. Like, we can take on so much. And someone, a fellow coworker who's a social worker, she gave me a term, this compassion fatigue, where you can take on so much from everyone else, right? To where literally all the compassion that you have is just draining and draining and draining. And it
Yes.
wears on you. It really does.
Yes. I've had to check that. I've had to check that since, I don't know what it is about the pandemic, but it almost feels like what was 1 year worth of, like, being because I used to be I'm in outpatient now, but during when the pandemic first happened, I was on an acute psychiatric unit. And it just felt like what was 1 year felt like 3 or 4. And that's how intense it was. And I felt myself, I felt that compassion fatigue starting to happen. Like, okay. All the empathy and it was going off the door. It busted U-turn in the dead end and hit a dead end because I was like, and that's when I noticed that it's like you got to do something different. You got to do something different.
Yeah. I would love to talk a little bit about this giant brand that you have built, this lifestyle brand that is now Hill Girls Hill. And I want to hear how you grew this into what it is today. Like we understand what it is, but like just from a business standpoint, how did you grow this brand and this platform?
Okay. I think it's important before I say like how I grew a business, I want to make sure like I break down what heal actually means.
Yes.
I want to make sure because although it's lowercase, it literally is a process. And I realize that like I want people to get the message more than anything else. And so H is an acronym. So H stands for honest, okay? E stands for examination, A stands for action, and L stands for love. Now, that is a process. So literally I feel like healing is a process. It's not a one and done thing. And so when you break it down, I do feel like you take it in levels and strides. And so the whole mindset was like, man, when I realized what I'd done and to get to the point where I had gotten, it was all these things. God had showed me like, man, you was honest with me. Once you started getting honest about the hell that you had felt like you had been through, that's when that's I feel like that's the foundation of any healing. You cannot heal without honesty. You cannot, you know. And so like from there, that's how things took place. Starting to do the work of examining the A, okay, what am I gonna do about this? Because it's not just enough to know you're hurt. And so what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna get some help? Are you gonna take on the tools and become more educated as to how to handle what you've been through? And then love is about loving yourself and maintaining, whether that's maintaining the forgiveness, maintaining how you're going to keep staying committed to the process, whatever it is. So I got to make sure I say that because it's the foundation as to why I exist. So yeah. So going to how this grew, God, I'm just gonna keep it a buck. God, and I'm gonna say that because this literally all I did was I started, like I said, Heal Grow Heal was about okay, let me just create a safe space for women to start getting their healing journey and to humanize healing. And it was like right before the pandemic. It was like I want to say September. I had been like feeling that I was supposed to like put this on a shirt, but I was like, no. I started off with a shirt that said like, "Ask me how I heal." That was like the motto like of like heal girl heal. Ask me how I heal. I need to tell you this. Let's start a conversation. Ask me how I heal. And so I never really put it out there. And I had this dream, and I feel like God had given me the vision. I'm like, oh, let me just put this out there. Well, I started to do it. I took a leap of faith. I wore the first time I ever wore it as a shirt. I didn't give it to any of my family and friends. I wore it to a Sarah Jake a tour she had. In that, while I was there, people were like, "Hey, I love your shirt. I love your shirt." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Being modest about it. I'm just
But deep
out
down, you
there
was like,
repping.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, okay, because they always tell you when you want to know if something to put it out there and see what the response is. But like, I literally was walking in my testimony. That's what this was. It was about me saying, heal, me being like walking, and people see it, they want to know what's that about. And so I felt like I was literally the merchandise became the vehicle to get the message out. That's all this was utilizing this as a vehicle to get the message of healing out. And so fast forward, it's so interesting you asked this. Jay has the whole he's talking about it on his platform, but I received a word in like June from my bishop, a prophetic word, and I hadn't shared this vision with anybody, not him. And so when he gave me word, he preached a message on Father's Day called Heal, Bro, Heal. He didn't know that I'd already had that written down and two other things of how this is a larger vision. I hadn't shared that with anybody. So he preached a message called Heal, Bro, Heal. And I'm like, what? So, then fast forward September of 2020 on YouTube and a podcast, the Dear Future Wifey podcast. You might want to check that out. They also have about healing and things like that. But the title was called Heal Brother Heal. And I was like, what? And from that, that's how I got connected to Jay Barnett. I just I felt like God was telling me reach out to him. Like, what are the chances that this message would be, would be the exact same message? And I reached out to him. I did what God told me to do, and from there, he loved the message, and I sent him the merchandise. And what ended up happening is I didn't know at the time because I had never known anything about him. And I didn't know at the time he was scheduled to be on a Breakfast Club. And he was having an interview with Charlamagne and Taraji for the Boris P. Henson Foundation. And it was kicking off mental health awareness. And he was like, just so you know, like, I'm gonna wear this. I'm like, what? And so, like, when I say God, that's what I mean by that, because it was literally me being obedient, me being a willing vessel to like share, that I'm healing, And so if I never had done that and never had been obedient to God, healing would be out there, like this would be out there, but not like this. And when first thing that happened when he turned on the interview and they started the interview, Charlamagne is like, I need that hoodie. I absolutely need that. I need that. And from there, it just started popping up on stuff, start going to different countries. And so if I can give you any advice, if you feel like you need something or you feel like you're supposed to do something, just do it. Because I get DMs, I get testimonies all the time of how people are just so encouraged and ministered to just by the word being on the shirt. And you just never know how it's going to resonate. So do it afraid. Do it even if you don't think it makes sense. Be Noah. And look, do whatever you're supposed to do because you just never know. So
That is powerful. That is powerful on so many levels. And for those listeners who might not be aware, the Breakfast Club is a really large platform with Charlemagne the Guy, DJ Envy, Angela Yee on what Hot Power 105, right? I think.
yep,
Yep,
iHeartRadio. Yep, I think it's
iHeartRadio.
iHeart. Yeah.
Yeah, really
Hmm.
big platform reaching millions of listeners. They're syndicated in Milwaukee too, randomly. Charlemagne talks about that all the time. And Charlemagne actually ended up wearing one of your shirts, correct?
Oh, a couple of times. Yeah, he's always in it. He goes hard for the kids. Shout out to Charlemagne the God. He really, and if you I this isn't about him, but like, to see the evolution. Like, if you've been following him for years, you can see the healing that is taking place in him and the evolution. Like, I am always so encouraged, and I'm like trying to keep it together, but it's a beautiful thing to see when people get in their healing journey and to become vocal about it. Like, it saves lives, not just yours, but it saves lives. And like, it's so beautiful to witness so many Black men that are saying, look, man, I'm hurt, or look, something is wrong and I need to figure it out. I love the commitment to being okay with mental health and investing in their mental wealth, as Charlemagne would say. Yeah, he rocks it all the time. Honestly, he just, yeah, he really resonates with it.
He's rocking it. He's crushing it. He's been a outspoken advocate for mental health, putting it out to a large platform. But you are crushing it. You are doing it. And Sonny, I can't help but to think back to when we started this conversation, and I asked you about the moment that really was pivotal in your healing process, and when you made the choice to have that difficult conversation, and then you felt free, and then from there, you really dove deep into this healing journey. And each step along the way prepared you for this moment to where your shirt, your brand, your message, more important than anything, your message is reaching hundreds of thousands of people internationally at this point. Like, how does that feel?
I'll be honest, sometimes it is very scary because I'm one of those people who, God, you can use me. I would love to be used invisibly. Like, I'm one of those people, like, see God in what I'm doing. Like, somebody just asked me this not too long ago, and they said, well, if you had to change your name, would that change anything? I said, it wouldn't change the mission. The mission is still healing. You can call me whatever you want to call me. You're not going to change my calling. You can call this whatever you want to call it. The mission is still healing. And like it feels on one hand, it feels great to know like the things that I've been through is not in vain. Cause that probably is one of the most fulfilling feelings. Like it's not all in vain. It wasn't for nothing. Even if I know, every time I get a DM of somebody that's like, I wore this on, I know the testimony, a person wore one of my shirts on a psychiatric unit, and it other patients started talking about healing, and it started, you know what I'm saying? Like that one seed was planted out of obedience, but then it causes like this ripple effect. And so it feels good to know that the things I've been through is not in vain, but it also feels good to know like the more people who resonate with it, the more people are going to plant the seed, the ripple effect, a domino effect, like of that the land being healed. I want the heal the land. That's my goal, to heal the land. But every order that goes out, I always say, you all see shirts, I see shift. You may think of profit, I think of purpose. You may see a shirt, I see surrender. And so, like for me, like it feels good to know, like that it wasn't all in vain, and that we're that much closer to healing as a whole, as a body, as a group of people, as a nation. So yeah,
Shift
it feels
is
good.
happening, and it's real. What's next for you,
Yeah.
Sunny?
Honestly, some be doing some healing coaching, like individually taking on some healing coaching, some group coaching. I got some stuff I'm working on as far as writing. So if I stop letting stuff get in the way, I'll be it's a project I'm working on, that I'll be submitting for, but I'm doing my own thing as far as doing some writing. Honestly, I'm willing to see where this goes. I would love for healing to be like this bridge between mental health and fashion. I would love for Heal Brand to kind of like take off in that way, because your girl, she low key fly. I'm a little laid
Oh,
back
we
right
see
now,
it. We see it. Yeah, yeah.
but like, yeah, whatever that is, and I really want to get into some training. I want to get into some training at the corporate level as it relates to healing.
We're gonna
So
speak it into existence. It's only a matter of
yeah.
time. Sunny, it has been an absolute pleasure. How can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you on social media?
Well, they can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Heal Girl Heal LLC. You can also check out my website. You can reach me through my website at healgirlheal.com. So yeah, that's how you get in touch with the girl, with the homie.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having this healing centered conversation with you. Any closing words? Any last thoughts? Anything that's just resonating that you have to let the people know?
I really want people to understand, like, healing itself is it's not a perfect cookie cutter approach. Like, it is not the prettiest feeling, but it, like I said, it really produces beautiful results. And I want people to know, like, visibility requires vulnerability. It doesn't matter. You can be hurt invisible, or you can be healing invisible, but you still already vulnerable. Every day you show up, every day you step out, every day you let anybody see you, you're already tapping into vulnerability. So why not tap into it to its fullest potential, so that so you can heal and not be the reason somebody else needs to go to therapy.
I love it.
That'd be
I love it.
it.
Sunny Perry Bailey, aka the Whole Healing Homie, CEO of Heal Girls Heal. It's been my pleasure having you on. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media. Until next time, take care, everyone.